Hello, friends. Chris Corsi here, and I want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm really excited about today's focus because we're going to look at why recovering from emotions breaks down. That's right. Why does recovering from emotions break down? Well, you know what? There's some really good reasons why this process breaks down, where we're feeling a big feeling and we're not able to get back to joy and peace. And friends, this is a very broad topic, but I'm going to really focus on today one of the big busters for emotions, why we get stuck, why we don't recover, and why relationships end up blowing up when we or others are stuck in their emotions. You see, your brain has to learn how to feel your feelings, share your feelings, and quiet your feelings. So when you can feel your feelings and then share your feelings, what happens is you learn you're not alone. Someone sees me, someone hears me, and someone understands me. And in some of our previous podcasts, we've talked about the role of VCR, which is we have people who validate and comfort us, which helps us return to joy. So the goal is you feel your feelings, you share your feelings, and you quiet your feelings. And so with repetition and with a lot of practice, you start to create these pathways where your right hemisphere knows what to do when you are feeling sad or mad or hopeless or disgusted or afraid or whatever the emotion might be. So when you've had a lot of practice feeling those feelings and sharing those feelings, you quiet your feelings. And so these return to joy pathways get stronger with practice. So that means we have people who are really good at tuning with us. They are able to sit with us. They were able to share some of what we're feeling and they validate and they comfort us so that we feel connected. And then we can calm down because we're not alone. And one of the common reasons why this process breaks down is because we feel alone. So we might be feeling our feelings, and when we try to share it, someone goes into trying to fix it mode, or they minimize us, or they dismiss us, or they don't engage with us, or they change the subject. There's endless possibilities of what can happen when we are sharing an emotion and somebody can't enter in. But the result is the same when this breakdown happens. I feel alone. And so if I'm in this big emotion and I'm feeling this emotion and I can't share it, then what happens is this activates attachment pain. Attachment pain is this deep subcortical pain in our brain's bonding center in the right hemisphere where we feel alone, we feel rejected, we feel abandoned, we feel neglected. So what happens is there's not connection when we need connection. And so feeling big emotions and feeling alone in those emotions when we're not getting the response or we're not getting the connection only makes the emotions bigger and harder to manage. And so what happens in these moments is we disconnect. Our brain slips into enemy mode where people feel like problems or we just want to win or we basically just want to disconnect with pseudo joy or pseudo quiet. Pseudo joy and pseudo quiet are alternatives, non-relational alternatives that I rely on to get relief. So I might be really upset after a hard interaction and I'm not able to effectively share it with someone because people don't enter in for whatever reasons. Then I want something to bring me relief. I'm going to eat some candy or I'm going to go spend some money or I'm going to get online and get lost in social media or do unhelpful things online. Like there's endless possibilities here of what we can do. So I'm not getting joy. So I'm seeking alternative pseudo joy options basically to try to compensate for the lack of glad to be togetherness. Or when I need quiet and I'm not able to get back to quieting after feeling and sharing an emotion, then I'll do and seek things to try to bring me down. That's also where we might veg out on the television, or we get lost in a book, or we turn to what my friend Ed Corey calls behaviors, experiences, events, people, or substances. He calls them beeps. And so we turn to beeps to try to bring us down in some ways. So we look for things to bring us up, make us feel better, get the blood flowing, exercise, or whatever it might be, or we look for things to bring us down. And some of these things could actually be very healthy things, but they're alternatives to glad to be together, joy, which is high energy, or low energy, quiet, which is when we rest. And it's that low energy resting time that helps us be able to settle down. So we can all think about times in our life where emotions were hard to manage because we felt alone or we felt disconnected or we felt like somebody's just not seeing or hearing me or trying to understand what's going on. And I know there's been times in my life where I was feeling a big emotion and I didn't have the connection that I needed to. And I can think of a lot of times in my life where I felt attachment pain, which was actually making the emotion bigger and harder to manage. I can remember a time in high school where I was really sad about a relationship that was broken and ruptured, and there wasn't any repair. And I can remember wanting to share that with some friends, and my friends just couldn't enter in. They didn't know how to be with Chris when Chris was sad. So often they would change the subject and tell me to get over it. They would say all kinds of unhelpful things, but they couldn't share my sadness. And what I was needing is just to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that would have actually brought some strength and some comfort and some capacity so that I could start to process that pain. And I can remember just feeling alone in that, wanting to share it, but I didn't feel like I had the people or the resources who could join me in that. And friends, that was really hard to navigate. And so this is where what we can do to try to deal with attachment pain and the difficulty getting back to joy and peace from emotions is one, we practice relational skills with other people who have strengths and weaknesses where we have strengths and our weaknesses. So where I'm strong and you're weak, I can help you in those certain skills or those certain abilities. Or where you have a challenge, I might have some strength that I can help you. So it's a beautiful time of receiving and giving life in our communities. So we practice relational skills with people, which grows our capacity and helps us to be the people that God created us to be. And when you grow capacity, that gives you strength to bounce back from the hard stuff. The other thing that we need, in addition to practicing with people and sharing stories and practicing skills to strengthen our ability to manage the hard stuff, we also learn to interact with the living God. And so we start talking to Jesus, interacting with Jesus to get his peace in those places where we feel stuck or we feel alone or we're not getting back to joy and peace. The good news about Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. God is always with us. Jesus is always with us in the good times and joyful times as well as in the hard times. And so we can start talking to Jesus about where is he in those places where we felt alone or we felt discouraged or we felt like something was needed, but we didn't have what we needed. And I can remember talking to Jesus about some of those places where I felt alone and some of the big emotions. And I was pleasantly surprised that I wasn't alone, even though I felt alone. Jesus was there. He was attuning with me. He had feelings about what I was having feelings about. And suddenly I started feeling seen that, wow, God sees me. And I felt understood. I felt heard. I felt like he was with me and connecting with me. And so as I would share some of my feelings or some of my hurts with Jesus, I felt like he was right there with me, comforting me. And he also validated me to like, Chris, I know this is big and this is scary, but I am here with you. And doing that helped me to process some of those pockets of pain. And you know what happened when I processed those pockets of pain? Emotions were starting to feel more manageable because they weren't inflamed by attachment pain. So, friends, the goal here with today's recording is to really give a language for why we get stuck and we don't bounce back to joy and peace because we feel alone. We feel alone in it. So, practicing with people builds capacity, it strengthens our skills, and sharing stories about how others return to joy from upsets or how they would do something different if they had a do-over. And we interact with the living God. We receive attunement and comfort from the living God so that we are able to process pain. And over time with practice, we improve our abilities to feel our feelings, share our feelings, and quiet our feelings. Friends, this is life changing. It has profoundly changed my life. And I wanted to share this with you today because I feel like we all have those places or those pockets in our lives where we just felt alone in certain times or certain relationships or certain experiences or certain seasons. And learning to find God's peace is a game changer. But we also need to practice with other people to build capacity and to grow maturity so that we learn we will not die, but live when it comes to managing big emotions and recovering from big emotions. And friends, there's a lot of really great resources that you can learn more about these relational skills at thrivetoday.org. You can learn more about the Emmanuel process. You can learn more about connecting with the Lord and finding Jesus's peace. But you know what? We have some very exciting upcoming Return to Joy courses where we're going to practice strengthening these Return to Joy skills so that you learn to bounce back from different emotions and you learn to stay your relational self. And we learn to become the people that God created us to be and express it in the good times as well as the bad times. Friends, I hope this is the start of something good for you today.